What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. So in this episode of the Killin Resurrection, we're getting back into them axles of mine because we got some super bitch new goodies from Ouverson Engineering. So if y'all didn't get a chance already, I got a video up that was right in the beginning of the Killin Resurrection. It might have been episode 1 or 2, something like that, where I went through and started tearing down my axles and kind of explaining what's going on. So real quick, a couple months ago, the Killin Mega Truck freaking blowed up when I was at a mud hole.
Killing it, bro.
I killed it. It's killed.
Yeah, not exactly our finest hour. So it's been taking quite a while to get the old girl back up and running again. We got a brand new engine getting built by SoCal Diesel. We're also adding some goodies from Nitrous Express, from Danville Performance, and man, it's gonna be freaking super bitchin' when we're done. But while the truck's been down, I knew it was gonna take a little while to get the new engine, get everything dialed in. So the mad scientist, our good buddy with the Adrenaline Mega Truck, yeah, that freaking guy. Well, he had a great idea. He said, dude, while the truck's down, while you're waiting for this motor, why don't you fix all the things you've been wanting to fix, dial in all the things you've been wanting to dial in. So that's what's led us to rebuilding these axles. So I went through in the first video and kind of explained why I'm doing all this stuff. So you have to go through and watch that first video if you want to get the whole explanation of why I'm doing all this. So I recommend you go ahead and stop this video and go back and watch that one so you'll be up to snuff. We'll actually go ahead and give you a second to do that right now. Now, for those of you that follow the channel pretty religiously, I've got some sweet stuff I want to show you. And those of you that went back and watched that first video, hopefully you all are up to snuff on what the hell's going on now. So let me give you a breakdown as to where I'm at right this second. I've got the truck back here and where we work on it, right on back yonder. Still got the little roll around wheels on it from when we were messing with the center console and all that stuff. And I went ahead and started tearing apart this hub. Now, I didn't have a chance to bring the camera out and like explain all this because I had to get this apart pretty quickly because I was kind of pressed for time because I wanted to get all this stuff knocked out this weekend. So if I wanted to be able to do that, I had to tear this down so I knew what parts I needed to get. But I went ahead and pulled this passenger side planetary apart and pulled the axle shaft out because I wanted to make sure I had the proper seal to be able to go inside of here. Now, if you all watched some of my other videos before, I've already gone through and kind of explained all the seals and kind of what they do. So I'm going to give you a real quick rundown if you haven't seen those videos yet. So inside here, right in that little lip where I was just kind of showing you right in there, that sits about right here. That seal goes around the axle shaft and it keeps all the 5-ton gear oil in the 5-ton, keeps it from getting water in through this knuckle. I found that it's pretty much damn impossible to keep this knuckle totally sealed up where it swivels and everything. It's going to get water in it. It's going to get mud in it. It is what it is. So I got a seal that sits right here and keeps all the 5-ton oil in the center, keeps your 5-ton pinion and everything, keeps all that lubed up, ready to rock and roll. And then you've got some other seals that sit right about here, and then it sits right about here when all this is put together, and it keeps all the oil in the planetary. And in a nutshell, I went through and got new axle shafts built so that I can have everything properly seal up, and because these new axle shafts are a hell of a lot more badass than the ones I had. So check these things out, y'all. You ready for this? That is the axle shaft that I used to run in that front axle. I believe they call it a ball and claw. And ball and claw or CV style. I still haven't really got to the bottom of if those are one and the same or if there's a difference between a CV style and a ball and claw. I'm not sure. But that's what I was running, and I hate it because it clunks like crazy. Like every time I turn and whatnot, the truck's always going inside the axles. A lot of y'all hear it and y'all tell me about it, and it's just salt in the wound. It freaking sucks because it sounds like your truck's broken it. And the other downside to having that type of axle shaft is it doesn't really seal up all that well, particularly on the 5-ton side. The planetary side seems to seal up no problem, but on the 5-ton side, I could not keep all the oil in the axle, and I also was getting water in it all the freaking time. So to fix it, I wanted to go ahead and get some axle shafts made like this one. So that shaft is out of the rear driver's side corner of the truck. And that is a U-joint style axle shaft, obviously, compared to the CV style. So it's kind of cool. You kind of see the comparison between the two. As far as strength-wise, I'm going to roll the dice and say that they're about equally strong. Some people say that that one's stronger. Some people say that that one's stronger. I really don't know. I haven't had either of them break, so I think they're equally strong as of right now. Whenever I have one break, that one will be considered the weakest one. But got my box back from Overson. I had sent this to them. I sent them 2 sun gears, one out of the front axle, one out of the rear axle. And then I sent him this rear axle shaft so that they could duplicate this axle shaft and give me a couple of them so that I can put them in the front axle. So that way all 4 corners will have the exact same axle shaft. I think there's a ton of benefits to having it set up like that, mainly because if I ever was to break one, all I have to do is have one spare and it can go anywhere in the truck. But the way the truck was originally set up, all the axle shafts weren't the same. So again, if you want to get more explanation on that, you got to go back and watch the other video. So that's what I sent Overson now. If you want to see what they sent me back, it's pretty bitchin'. Boom! Look at that old girl. Freaking killing it, right? Thing is sick. Told y'all it was going to be worth the wait. Took a couple months to get these. But dude, look at how beefy that freaking knuckle is. Holy Toledo. Knuckle joint, whatever you want to call it. And look, they actually make their own U-joints. That's like a machined U-joint. How real deal is that thing? Oh, brother. Now, they did say that as far as size goes, the U-joint that I've got in the axle shaft that I sent them is an 850 size. This is a 750, but they machined it as some hardcore material. So that U-joint is actually stronger than this one. How freaking bitchin' is that thing? Look at that. It's all heat treated. That is real freaking deal, y'all. Oh, brother. Freaking sick, right? Super badass. So don't be hitting me up asking me how much they cost. They cost a lot. If you want to get some, you need to call Overson and tell them you want some. They'll tell you how much it's going to cost. But now that I have those axle shafts, we've got a lot of work to do this weekend. Not looking forward to it because it's freaking 94 degrees here in Florida. Super freaking hot. That's why I actually decided. I got a little crafty. Hopefully, it seems to be working out. Got one of those cheap Walmart 10x10 tents and just kind of half-assly popped it right next to my barn here, next to the truck. So I don't have to be blazing in the freaking sun while I'm working on this because that makes it 10 times worse. But the first thing I'm going to do is pull this wheel off. I got to pull this hub completely apart so that I can put that original U-joint axle shaft back in there. Once this corner is all put back together, then we'll go ahead and move to the front of the truck. So one step at a time. Let's go ahead and get this all tore apart first, get that new axle shaft in there, get it all put back together. That way the truck definitely won't budge or move because it'll have the axle shaft in here locking both of these wheels so to keep the truck from rolling backwards. So that's going to be step one. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the time-lapse camera for y'all so you can watch this whole process come together. As always, make sure you hit the like button at the bottom of the screen and hit the subscribe button down there in my channel name. That way you'll get notified anytime we upload any other videos. So, and here we go. All right, y'all, so we got this back driver's side corner tore back down. It's actually pretty clean. Not too dissatisfied with it. I mean, we obviously ain't been mud bogging it, so that's part of the reason why it's so clean, but it's just got a little bit of grease in there for the two steering bearings, or kingpin bearings. But yeah, so now it's time to start putting her back together, but I'm gonna do a couple things differently. For one, these two studs, when I was removing these nuts, these studs came out with them. So I'm going to use the vise to go ahead and pull these nuts off of the studs. I'm going to put a little bit of RVT in here and then tighten it in there really good. Basically what I'll do is I'll take two nuts, kind of like the nut that's on here, put two of them right next to each other so they'll tighten up on one another. And then I can use that to kind of spin this into the hub and get it nice and tight. And the RVT hopefully will keep it in there and keep it from coming out again if I was to ever take this apart again. Then that's pretty much all I got to do though. Then I just start reassembling. I think I'm going to go ahead and replace this seal because it's starting to rust a little bit. It's starting to look a little bit crappy. So I've got a bunch of these seals laying around, so I'm going to go ahead and throw another one in. But I need to reinstall the spindle. And it looks like all the seals are pretty good. All the rubber looks good in all of them. The seal that goes back in here that goes right behind the steering knuckle, that all seems to be good. That rubber seems nice. So now I'm just going to start reassembling. So I'm going to go ahead and put them studs in first, put the axle shaft in, put a little bit of grease on this seal before I put it in, put the axle shaft in, and then start reassembling. All right, y'all, one thing I freaking actually didn't even realize when I was putting this back together for the Mikey show prep a couple freaking weeks ago, when I was getting the truck kind of to where it could roll to go to went to the Made of Steel show with Mikey's Custom Coatings, and then we went to the Florida Truck Meet. But one thing I didn't realize when I was putting it together was, as I've told you all like a bunch of different times, that joint doesn't really seal up. I mean, I always get mud and water and whatnot on it. That's why it's a sealed U-joint. But why that's relevant is when I go to put this spindle on there, I don't necessarily need to seal this because it gets water in it anyway. So when I put it together last time, I put RVT all right there. I don't need to do that this time. All I can do is go ahead and, now I got all the old RVT out and I cleaned it up pretty good. But I can just put that spindle right on there, but then I do need to start sealing it up when I put this new seal on top of the spindle. So I'll put the spindle on first and the seal will go right over top. But I can put sealing all on there because that's when it does start mattering. So little details, but just so you know. Y'all, well, that took a bit longer than I thought it was going to, but not too bad because I got to take my time and kind of just slowly get on through it. But the back axle is back ready to rock and roll. Got both axle shafts back in there. It's all nice and sealed up. I end up replacing that flange seal that's in there because that one was looking, not terrible, but it's looking a little bit rusted and kind of nasty. So I put a brand new one in it. And then I also ended up replacing one of the planetary seals too because it was looking a little bit distorted. I don't know if it necessarily was gonna leak, but I figured I'm in there and I don't have to take it all apart again. But yeah, see how that's kind of like folded over right there? Yeah, I don't know. Kind of had a feeling that I might have an issue. You can tell it's just like in that bottom edge, like from there forward, it seems to look good. Just right in that bottom crease. Yeah, the more I look at it, I'm really glad I replaced it. But anyways, the back axle is ready to rock and roll. Freaking super killing it. So now to the front axle. This is where things are gonna get pretty fun and interesting. So as I had said in the first video, I'm having Mr. Bobby Brown's gonna help me go ahead and slice and dice that current axle housing that I have, that extra one. He's gonna help me slice and dice that, and he's gonna weld the flanges on it to turn that into a planetary. This flange right here. So the mad scientist is actually cutting me some new flanges. I think first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pop this wheel off over here, this other roll around wheel, and then I'm gonna disassemble this planetary. It doesn't have an axle shaft in it. I had taken out both of the driver's side axle shafts, so that one's still not in there because it's that crappy ball and claw style one. That's right back here in my barn. Yeah, it's that freaking hunk of junk. So anyways, it doesn't have an axle shaft in it currently. So I'm gonna disassemble all that, set all those parts off to the side. And then from there, I think I'm gonna start disconnecting everything to pull that whole axle out of the truck. Yeah, so I'm gonna get this axle, to get this corner tore down to where it'll be about the same state as this one, just because it'll make everything a lot less heavy. Probably take at least 300-400 pounds out of it, so it won't be so, right now it's gonna be super goofy because all this stuff's taken apart here and all that stuff's still in there. So it's gonna be really heavy on that end and lighter on this end. It's just gonna be a pain in the ball bag to screw with. So I think I'm gonna get this side to this same state. Then I'm gonna pull the axle out of the truck, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff I gotta do from there. And here we go. went pretty quick too. Things are starting to get faster and faster the more I do them. So now we've got this corner to the same state as the other corner. This one obviously didn't have an axle shaft in it, but I got all the parts pulled off it. So now both front axle planetaries are now emptied. So from this point, I think I'm gonna jack this up, get the A-frame underneath there, and disassemble everything I need to get that axle completely free from the truck. And I'm gonna put that axle right over here so that I can work on it. And we let the next phase commence right now. All right, y'all. Well, it is now 10:30 at night, and we have successfully got the axle out from underneath the truck. Yeah, super freaking bitching. Truck is hanging on her support, and the axle is now over here underneath my little half-ass tent, so I can get to work on her bright and early in the morning. So I'll explain where we're at tomorrow morning when I get back after it, because I'm freaking whooped. So, all right, y'all, welcome back. That's better. Got a little more energy, and we got some daylight. So now we've got the axle out of the truck. So the next step is going to be to pull this center chunk out of this axle, because I'm going to be reusing that center chunk with the ring gear and everything, the helmet, the whole 9 yards. I'm reusing that on the new axle. So I'm going to pull that off, set that off to the side. Then I can go through and start reassembling these planetary outers, because I won't have that center ring gear in the middle here binding it up. Because remember, these new axle shafts are a little bit longer than the ones that originally were in this axle. They're the same length of the ones that are in that axle. So if I start doing this with the center chunk out, I'll be able to feed the axle shaft through, reassemble all these planet gears. And then I don't know if I'll be able to do them both at the same time while they're both still attached or not, because I think the axle shafts might touch in the center. So I'm thinking I'll have to do one, then dismount it, take it off, set it off to the side. Then I can do the other one, dismount it, take it off to the side. Then the last step will be I got to go over to my spare axle, pull that center chunk off of it, set that off to the side. Then I got to cut that hub off, cut that other hub off, and then it's ready to go to Bobby Brown. So I can take him that cut up rear axle. I can cut him both of my assembled planetary outers and my center chunk. Bam. And we're ready to rock and roll. So let's go ahead and start getting this center chunk out. All right, y'all, we got the center chunk out. Whew, another step in the right direction. So now I've got my old axle housing here. Still has both the planetary outers on it. I've got my center chunk that I'm going to be reusing on this new axle. So now we're going to venture on over here to what is going to be my new axle. My spare that's back here. So first things first. First I'm going to pull this old crappy chunk out. And I'm kind of running out of freaking space. Maybe just set that over here on the ground. Then need to probably just to make things easier, I'm just going to bring the plasma cutter over here and just cut this off right here. I got to cut this off and cut that hub off. Then I can grab that housing, and that's got to come over here because that is going to Mr. Bobby Brown with that center chunk. So that's going to be the next step. All right, y'all, I gotta say, this thing is putting a whooping on me for sure. But we got that freaking extra axle. We got both the hubs cut off of it. And they are sitting on the ground back yonder. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna end up doing with them. They're gonna sit there for probably a good little minute. But That was such a pain in the freaking ball bag cutting this stuff. So as you could probably tell from the time lapse, I started doing it with the torch. And I was like, all right, obviously my torch isn't strong enough to get through this crap, because that's a pretty solid wall right there. So I was like, all right, the torch isn't getting through it. Maybe I'll try the thin wheel, even though I think it's a little ridiculous trying to cut this with a freaking cutoff wheel. But I started doing cutoff wheel, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna get anywhere with the cutoff wheel either. So that's when I resorted to going back to the torch. But then since that plasma cutter, I mean, it's not a technical torch, it's a plasma cutter. Since it doesn't have the strength to be able to cut through that crap, I went ahead and actually had to like work my way over. Like I'd cut, and then blow some more off, so I get the torch in there to go even further. But man, that sucked. That was a pain right in the freaking ass. It took like probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I bet, to cut both sides, maybe a little longer. But nevertheless, they are cut. And then I got my center chunk, my original center chunk that I've been using now. Got that put into this housing and dropped right in. That was actually, that center chunk actually went with that housing originally, so it dropped right in perfectly. Yeah. We're getting close. We are getting closer. So now we're gonna go back on over to the original axle. And gotta clean out, I'm gonna do one at a time. I gotta clean out the hub really good. And then pop a seal right in that little cavity right there. And then pop the axle shaft in. And then put the entire planetary back together. Put the carrier, put the spindle and the seal and the carrier and all that nonsense. Got to put together one side. Once one side is together, then I can come on over here and unbolt the flange and take that outer off, and then set it on over with the stuff that's going over to Mr. Bobby Brown right on over there. And then I got to do the other side. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get both of them back together tonight because it's getting a little late and I am freaking exhausted. I'm going to try to get as far as I can. Hopefully I'll be able to at least get one together, I'm thinking. Hope this is worth it when it's done, because it's a lot of damn work. God, been working all weekend on this crap. Better get to it. Well, yeah, I kind of got stuck in a torrential downpour last night when I was trying to work on this hub. So I had to hurry up and scramble, grab all my tools, throw them in the barn, because my tent, though it seems to be working okay for shade, it will not hold up very well to rain. Yeah, it'll start pulling rain, it'll collapse, and it will suck. So I had to hurry up, scramble, throw the tent in the barn, throw all my tools in the barn. But we're back at it. The next day, I'm going to keep continuing with putting this first hub back together. Got to grab the next part of the hub, it's sitting right back over yonder. Throw her on. So let's get to it. Y'all, and just like that, hub number one is back together. Man, that's a lot of damn work. So now I got to hook up the little crane system there and hook onto this outer, get it all hooked up with the hoist. Then I got to undo all those bolts, pull this whole outer off of the axle, and set it on back over yonder with the stuff that's going over to heavy metal fab later this week. And I actually almost forgot to show y'all. I almost didn't even realize. So I can actually show you all exactly why I'm having to do all of this. So see how this is all hooked up the way it usually would be when it's on the truck. The only problem is that axle shaft is going more than halfway. Halfway point is about right here. So this shaft needs to be back here a little ways, and they don't want to be touching either, so you need a little gap between them. So basically that shaft is too long for the way this axle's set up. Now remember, this axle shaft is the exact length as the one that's in both of those back corners. So that way I'll have the same size axle shaft all the way around. So that's why I got the longer one. But I've got to make this new axle so that it's a little bit wider so that it will accommodate this longer shaft without having the problem that you see there. Kind of interesting. Kind of neat to see. like that, that freaking hub is ready to rock and roll. We're starting to get quite a good little pile going of stuff going to Mr. Heavy Metal Fab Bobby Brown. Got my new housing, my old chunk, my old, what is that, dry passenger side corner. So now the only thing missing is the driver's side corner. So let's repeat the same process we just did. Got to put that seal in there in the back. Actually, first I got to clean this thing out, I'd imagine. It's actually pretty clean. So clean it out just a little bit more. And got to put that seal in here, put the axle shaft, spindle, and all the other parts for the planetary outer. Put all that together, and we're freaking ready to rock and roll. We're ready to take everything over to Mr. Bobby Brown. Well, almost. I still got to get my axle flanges from Mr. Freaking Adrenaline Mega Truck. Mr. freaking Mad Scientist. Freaking Rail Dale, machine shop guy. Oh yeah. Got to freaking get my axle flange from him. He's machining that, I think, this week. I hope it's this week because I'm supposed to be going to Mr. Bobby Brown's place on Friday. So I got to make sure I got all my pieces. That includes that freaking flange. But anyways, digressed a lot there. Let's clean this baby up, get that axle shaft in there, get that seal in there, get all the freaking planetary gears, and get ready to rock and roll. You heard me? Y'all, we have successfully put the other side hub back together. Super freaking killing it. So now tomorrow morning, or not in the morning, tomorrow after work, all I gotta do is jack the hoist up a little bit, take those 8 bolts out, slide that hub out, and bring it on over here with our other goodies that are over there ready to go to freaking Heavy Metal Fab. Phase 1 is complete, baby. Hell yeah. Well, I'm gonna call it an evening because it is now 10:30 at night. But we will reconvene tomorrow. All right, y'all, with a little bit of luck, this is our last day of axle prep work. All I gotta do is finish getting this hub off. Right on over here. I've already got the engine hoist on it, got pressure off of it. So just gotta take all 8 of those bolts out, slide that hub out, and then back the truck on up and get all my goodies loaded up so that I can take them over to Mr. Heavy Metal Fab here in a couple days. So it looks like there's a storm of brewing out there, so I better move my ass and get this show on the road. So let's get after it. All right, y'all, we got all my axle parts loaded up, so now we're headed back over to the Mad Scientist freaking work laboratory because he's got some super bitchy new parts to be able to make these axles start coming together. Now, what super bitchy parts you might be asking? Well, freaking flanges that can go on the end of that axle housing. So let's pull in here and get these freaking pieces. Pretty excited. They're gonna be super bitch. Anything the Mad Scientist makes is always super killing it. So guarantee these are gonna be dialed in. Look at all my freaking goods.
Mr. YouTube himself.
What you doing, man?
Just making more mega truck parts.
Betcha. They start out as these, and then Mr. Brian puts them in here, and they come out like I got. Pretty much is all to it, right? Pretty simple.
That's it.
Super freaking bitchin', bro, right? Oh yeah! Oh, brother. Tell me that's not a freaking flange and a half. And look, he just happens to have one of my extra planetaries right here. So this will be welded onto the axle. and boom. Mates right up to that freaking planetary hub. Well, there you go. Now it does. So what's really freaking cool about those flanges, that's actually a heavy metal fab design. Bobby Brown came up with that, the way it's counterboard and kind of goes onto the axle and everything. So I don't know if you guys quite understood, but basically those are gonna get welded on the end of that axle housing that I cut apart a couple days ago. Those are gonna get welded on the end, and that will allow that planetary outer to be able to bolt to my 5-ton center. So now that I've got those parts nestled away here in my front seat, I gotta run back to my house and grab a couple things, and it's right on over to New Smyrna, freaking heavy metal fabrication. Now, the reason why I'm having him do that is because, one, he is the professional when it comes to this stuff. He's got it super dialed in. If y'all pay attention to any of my other videos, he's actually helped me a whole lot with getting the original axles dialed in as good as we could. And he's also answering all my constant questions about all this stuff. So and actually been able to help him out a little bit too. It's been pretty cool, a little give and take. But he's got jigs and all kinds of like templates, and he knows exactly what he's doing to be able to get those flanges welded onto the end of the axle and make sure they're true and plumb and square. Because it's very, very, very important that they're exactly in the right spot before they get welded. Otherwise, my axle shafts, they might be off canter a little bit, and we've all been down that road before. I don't know if I don't think I showed any of that in my other videos. My axles before, they weren't as good as they could have been. So now we're sending over to Mr. Bobby Brown to get those flanges put on, because then they're gonna be freaking super bitchin'. Dialed in nice and straight to where that axle shaft will be like this when it's spinning. That's right. No wobble whatsoever. It's just gonna be freaking straight, like dong. So anyways, let's get this road trip out of the way. Y'all can't see it, but we freaking have made it to Heavy Metal Fab headquarters. Getting unloaded. All my junk. And just like that, Mr. Bobby Brown's done with my axle. We're loading them back up. They're gonna be so handsome, isn't he? And just like that, we are loaded back on up and headed back home. These freaking flanges, man, did he do a super bitchin' job. Triple passed. Yeah, brother. Oh, let's get on back home. Start the next phase of building this axle. Well, damn, y'all, I kind of screwed up a little bit. I got home, got everything unloaded, and forgot to start recording and filling y'all in on where we're at. Sorry, but I didn't get too far. So we're gonna give you all a little rundown on where we're at with this thing and bring y'all up to snuff so you feel like you're right there with us, just, you know, like, just like that. You heard me? So, if you look over yonder, old Killin's still up on her stand, but I got my outers unloaded out of the truck, set them back here underneath the truck so hopefully they'll be protected a little bit from the sun and whatnot. And then I went and hung some plumb bobs from my bolt that my shocks mount to. I'm down here, and then I was able to get a measurement exactly how wide across my front shocks are. And then I got that measurement wrote down, and then I started measuring this, taking a whole bunch of pictures of my old housing here, seeing exactly where everything is located. I've got it all written down on this piece of cardboard. It's around here somewhere. Oh, it's right here. So I started writing down a whole bunch of this stuff so that I knew right where the hell everything's at. Now, what I'm gonna do, or what I've been doing the past couple seconds now, is I'm gonna start cutting these mounts off. So if you're picky like I am, you want everything to match up whenever you put your truck together. I don't have like different mounts here, different mounts there. It makes everything look a little bit hokey and a little bit like you slammed it together with what you got laying in the barn, which, not hating on the people that do that, but I don't want to do it that way. So we got two options. I can go ahead and cut these mounts off and reuse them, or I can get Mr. Adrenaline to go and make me some new mounts. But regardless, I need to get at least one of them off so that Mr. Adrenaline can go through and template it up to be able to cut some on his machine. So that's where I'm at now. Now that I've got measurements on where the sway bar mounts were on the axle, which were right here, that's where the sway bar is connected to. I've got measurements on where they are on center and how far off the axle they are, like off the center of the axle housing. I've got measurements on where the shock mounts are exactly located, where these limiting chain connection points, where they are in relation to the housing, how far off, how far up, the 4-link mounts, and I think that's pretty much all I needed. So I went and took all those dimensions because though a lot of people don't believe us, Mr. Adrenaline and I, when we were figuring out like where everything was going to be and kind of how the subframe was going to be on this truck, somehow it pulls really freaking good and it bogs really good. And we're not entirely sure how, well, I don't know. Brian says he has a little bit of an idea of why, but basically I want to duplicate everything when I build this new axle housing, or when we put it all together. I want all my shock mounts to kind of sit pretty much in the same spot. I want my 4 links to link up in the same spot, and I want my limiting chains to be in the same spot, and my sway bars to be in the same spot, because hopefully we won't, by putting this new axle on here, we don't want to make the truck pull any less good or any less gooder. We don't want it to tug we don't want it to tug okay? And we don't want it to bog crappy, because right now it performs really well for the most part. I mean, other than the motor blowing up, but as far as the geometry of the frame and the way it flexes and the way it moves and acts and grips whenever we're tugging, everything seems to be top notch right like we want it. So we just want to maintain that. So that leads me to where I'm at right now. I got the Sawzall out and I'm going to start cutting all these tabs off. Really, I just need to reuse this tab and these tabs on both sides. I went ahead and bought new D-rings, so I'm not really too worried about those. I might still cut those off though, save them for something. No sense in letting them go to waste. But then this whole steering bracket and everything and the pull point, thing is super on there. Brian welded the shit out of it when we were building the truck. So I think I'm just gonna leave it on there. We're gonna build all new. But I wanna reuse these brackets so everything else will match. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm gonna get back on the Sawzall, see if we can get one of these tabs off. All right, y'all, it started getting a little late the other night when I was cutting the brackets off. You all saw what I was doing, right? Were we paying attention? Were you freaking watching? I got all of the 4-link brackets cut off. 4-link, and those actually go to my limiting chains too. And I got the one shock mount bracket off, the little banana bracket there. So I got them off and started looking at them, and we were originally, like I said before, we were gonna go ahead and reuse these brackets on my new axle. But we started looking at it and they're not really killing it. So like those are the 4-link brackets that I had cut off. So you see how that hole is like not in the middle? It's like fatter right here, and then thinner and thinner, and then obviously fatter. And it just kind of looks like crap. See the lines kind of like veered off a little bit with the laser there, and yeah, it's got like it's not ideal. Okay, look at, yeah. It kind of speaks for itself. So as I started looking at it, I'm like, let's go run this by the mad scientist, because these brackets, they don't seem to be killing it, bro. And we got to be killing it. If we're not killing it, what are we doing? We're kyling it. You don't want to be kyling it. Yeah, that sucks. So took the brackets over to the mad scientist shop, what was it, like yesterday? And we started looking at it, and he agrees that those brackets do look like crap. We don't want to put those on the new axle. But the downside is if we do put new brackets on the front axle is not going to match the rear axle, because as you all can see, I have those same brackets on the rear axle. So I decided to create a lot more work for myself, because we're not going to be freaking taking second place with this thing. I don't think so. No, we go full tilt or we don't do it at all. So mad scientist helped me design all new brackets. We got all new shock mounting brackets. We got new sway bar mounting brackets. We've got new 4-link brackets and new limiting chain brackets. We designed them all on his computer. Sat over there, actually, so that must have been like 2 days ago. Yeah, I went over to his shop though, and we designed them all up, sent them over to the shop that's gonna go and laser them out for us. So that's what we're waiting on right now, is for them to laser those pieces out. Because we also had to get some brackets that I wasn't gonna cut off of this axle. Like them big old freaking the steering bars there, like that's actually designed from the mad scientist himself. He came up with that back when we first built my truck, so like three and a half years ago, something like that. He came up with this whole design with the pull point, the 2 plates and all that. Yeah, well, I'm not cutting that off because Brian welded that on for me, and he welded the fire out of that thing. Look, it is welded inside, outside, up, top, bottom, all around. Yeah, I'm not cutting that thing off. I'll be here for forever and a day to get that off. So I bought a new one of those blocks that's got the shackle mount on it. And then, so we'll have to go through and like machine that and like prep it to where it'll be able to go in between those 2 steering plates. But I had to get those 2 steering plates made regardless. So we've got those coming. We got all the new shock mounts, everything I just explained. All that's coming from our buddies with the laser shop. So hopefully we'll get those. I'm thinking we're gonna get them in the next like day or 2. And then the axle actually, oh yeah, I forgot to bring you all in on that. That axle that Mr. Bobby Brown went and welded those outside flanges onto, I dropped that off at the Mad Scientist's home laboratory yesterday. So that's already sitting there waiting for him. We've got all the brackets being cut. Hopefully we'll have the brackets in the next couple days, and then we're gonna go back over to the Mad Scientist shop and start fabbing this axle up. So that's really like, well, almost the last thing we got to do as far as the axle is concerned. We got to weld those brackets on it, weld the D-rings on it, the pull point, all that sort of stuff. And then I've got to sandblast that axle, get it painted, and then we can start reinstalling on the truck. So we're getting there. We're making progress. So we'll reconvene here in the next day or 2 when I've got all those brackets in hand, and we're going to be at the Mad Scientist super bitchin' home shop where we can start fabbing this thing together. If y'all enjoyed the video and want to check out future videos, subscribe to our channel. Hit that button right there. While you're at it, hit the like button at the bottom of your screen. You can also check out our website, killin'itlifestyle.com. There you can follow the Killin' It crew and order your own apparel so everyone will know you're killing it!